Good morning. Welcome to the Performing Arts Series, brought to you by the Kennedy Center and the Prince William Network. My name is Susan McGuire, and I'm the director of Taylor 2, and also your moderator for this morning's broadcast. Before we show you any dancing, I'm going to tell you a little bit of background of Paul Taylor, who has been called the world's greatest living choreographer. He makes dances. That's what he does. That's what his passion is. That's what he loves. He's been doing it since 1965 until now. And he continues to make at least 2 new dances every year. As you watch the dances and the excerpts from the pieces and the warm-up exercises that I'm going to show you, there may be certain questions that occur to you that I actually haven't brought to your attention. So please remember those things, because there will be a question and answer period at the end of the show. One of the things about Mr. Taylor's choreography is that he borrows things from all kinds of aspects of life, not only the arts, but from the insect world, from watching people on the street and how they relate to each other, how they are in their personal lives, how they are in their public lives. He's very, very much a reporter, as well as having been a dancer and having made dances all of his life. He comes out of the great tradition of modern dance, but his work is extremely diverse. It's probably more diverse than any choreographer who has actually ever worked. And every piece has its own character, its own flavor, its own intention. He started out as a painter at Syracuse University. He was a painting major. So that already tells us something about the visual aspects of his work, how it travels through space, where he places the dancers on stage, the colors that he uses in the costumes and lights. In fact, when he gets a new dancer into the company, he often thinks of them as a new color for his palette. So there are an infinite number of colors available to him. And there's one that he particularly likes of interest when he sees a dancer dancing, and he says, that's someone that I would really be interested in making work on. So it's those elements of painting that he employs in his dancing. Not only that, but if we look at painting, particularly modern painting, we can actually see a lot of movement in the painting, even though it's not truly moving and it doesn't evoke a visceral response in us. But there is definitely that element of movement from painting, whether it's a diagonal line or a circle or a way a certain color is used. There's definitely going to be an aspect that you can respond to more than just visually, an excitement or not, maybe the reverse, something kind of melancholy about the way in which those colors and the light is put together. The other very, very strong influence on Mr. Taylor's work was the fact that in order to get through university, he auditioned for a swimming scholarship. He was a very, very fine athlete. He was tall, about 6'2". He had long, long, loose limbs and was very heavily muscled. He had the ideal swimmer's body. And he did get onto the swimming team. He still felt that there was something missing. The swimming was able to give him a certain amount of physical satisfaction, certainly the activity itself, certainly the way the water felt. And if you've all been swimming, you know what that feels like, to be underwater where your movement is slowed down, made much more fluid. The very fact of the water itself is the quality of the water affects how you are actually able to move within it. And as you watch the dances today, you will see that there are very, very clear aspects of that kind of physical activity in the way in which Mr. Taylor developed his language. He felt that there was still something missing, however, and he just had a feeling about it. And he had what he calls a flash of recognition, in which he remembered when he was a very small child, he was given a marionette theater for Christmas. And he was absolutely fascinated by this theater, and he'd not remembered that until he was actually in college and thought, I'm not completely satisfied with the painting and the swimming. And so he sought out the local dance club, and he became involved in that, even though he had not studied dance seriously. And in fact, he performed during halftime at football games and that sort of thing. But he became increasingly intrigued by dancing, and that was recognized. And he was urged to try for the Juilliard School, which he eventually did, and he went to the Juilliard School, where he got some very, very serious dance training. Many aspects of what Paul Taylor did in that training, I'm now going to have the dancers demonstrate to you. We have, of course, utilized every possible aspect of dance training to make our bodies as skillful and strong and articulate as we possibly can. And one of those training techniques is ballet. It's probably the most systematic of any technique. It's like learning grammar. It's like developing good articulation. good verbal skills, whether it's really oral or whether it's written. There's a clarity with which we must speak to make ourselves understood. And Chad and Shanti, to your right, are demonstrating exercises that were developed centuries ago to form the way in which the feet, ankles, legs, the rest of the torso works, finding the balance on one leg, finding the articulation in the feet, which is important not only for the line of the dancer in space and how they look, but also propelling the dancer through space in jumps, traveling movements. So all of those things need to be developed in every dancer today. Every dancer does ballet because it is, as I said, the most systematic of techniques. Not only that, it's extremely beautiful, of course. I don't want to at all deny the fact that ballet is one of the most extraordinary art forms. And you will see in the first piece that there's some very, very strongly influenced formal qualities in the dance that Paul created, that many ballet companies actually have used his dance in their repertories. Going back to the swimming aspects of Paul Taylor's physical being, and you see that Susie and Joe on your left are doing a series of exercises that really begin to develop articulation in the back in a way that ballet would not do, which is very upright and very aristocratic. Now we're getting into a more emotional, deeper, more fluid way of moving, much more weighted and grounded. They're needing to really get into the large muscle groups of the legs, the quadriceps, the hamstrings, as well as the large muscles in the back. Spinning, using the twist in the body to spin, also doing all the bending and contracting, getting onto the floor without hurting themselves so they land on the soft parts of the body. So all of those things are incorporated into Paul Taylor's work, and you will be seeing that later as well. I would like to go now to start to show you some movements across the floor so that you can begin to see how Mr. Taylor actually uses the space as a palette. So he's using the stage space in front of you as if he's got an absolutely blank canvas. And he's going to use the dancers not only for the beauty of their individual movement, but also for the way in which they actually carve the space for you and make the space begin to look different. Some people have said that much of Paul Taylor's choreography looks as if it was meant to be done outside. There's a freshness and a spaciousness and an openness to it. So we'll begin. They're just going to do a very, very simple phrase across the floor in canon, and you will see some of the fluidity and some of the formality of the alignment in the body that I was speaking about earlier. I'll give you 2 3s. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, and a 1, 2, 3, and a 2. 2, 3, and a round, and 2, and 3, and 2, and 2, and 3, and a 1, 2, 3, and a 2, 2, 3, and a 1, and 2, and 3, and a 2, and 2, and 3, and a 1, 2, 3, and a 2, 2, 3, and a 1, and 2, and 3, and 2, and 2, and 3, and a 1, 2, 3, and a 2, 2, 3, and a thank you very much. When Mr. Taylor first began making airs, jumps. Let's not forget jumps. When Mr. Taylor first began making airs, he was talking about air and water currents. And I will have more to say about that just before I introduce the first section of the program. But it's something to keep in mind because we will be demonstrating a little bit of that kind of aspect of the work. But you could see it as they were traveling around the stage just now. So Jared and Michelle, on your right, are going to demonstrate some very, very simple jumps. These are all parts of a class that a dancer would do every day. And of course, it's very condensed because we're just showing you bits and pieces. An ordinary dance class lasts from 1.5 to 2 hours. And they continue training. Once they become professionals, it's like being an athlete. You don't stop training. It's something that's part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth. So I'll give you 2 2s in, and a 1 and 2 and a 1 and go, and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 da da ya da 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 ba 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 da da. So all of that articulation in the legs and feet that Shanti and Chad were doing helps them to be articulate when they're going into the air. Would you do that just one more time for us, please? And I'll slow it down just a little bit more so that you can really jump higher at the very, very end. I'll give you 4 for nothing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a up and 2 and 3 and 4 and a round and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and up and 2 and a 3 and 4. Thank you. Now let's begin to talk about a little bit of upper body strength in the case of the women and a great deal of upper body strength in the case of the men. Mr. Taylor's choreography is often not gender specific, and you'll see that as well in the very, very last piece that we do. It's quite physically demanding, it's very athletic, it takes a lot of aerobic strength and stamina. But Chad and Shanti will demonstrate for you a very, very specific section from Airs, which is actually quite formal. First, done very slowly in this case, all the elements of lifting, very careful about how he places her down into the floor and around. Now he's going to bear her weight in a different way. She has to make sure that she's very strong in the legs to be able to do this as well. And then from here, this takes essentially just the kind of brute strength that you would do if you were lifting weights or doing a push-up. Thank you. Now they're going to take the same sequence. It's going to go quite a bit faster as it does in the dance. You will see this performed. And momentum and timing become another element that is used here. So it's exactly the same movement, speed it up, and twice into the air for the cartwheel. Thank you. Thank you. Now Michelle and Joe will demonstrate a lift from the tango piece, which will be the second piece on today's program. Again, using the elements of strength, but also quite a bit of momentum. It's a little bit more complex in some ways. So their timing has to be very, very sure. Not to mention knowing where you are in space. Thank you. All right, the ladies, would you please change, get ready for Airs? And I'd just like to demonstrate for you, again, a further idea about traveling through space. The men are going to run in a simple circle. Again, this is the idea of moving through the space in a pattern, and it's simply follow the leader. So Chad started off on your right, Jared ended up on your right. Now they are going to do something called bird formation, in which they don't change the relationship to each other, nor do they change the relationship in space. Thank you. Now they're going to come on and do just a very, very short segment from Airs, the first section of Airs, which incorporates those elements. Follow the leader, and then what we call the flock, again, bird formation, in which they are going to maintain a triangle as they move through space, but the relationship to each other in the triangle does not change. So they don't go around each other or cut across each other. Right on it. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and now they're on their own, because actually in the piece, the music slows down, and they keep the same tempo, which means they really have to keep an eye on each other and sense each other's movement very, very clearly. So they're actually moving as one body. And again, the idea of air and water currents, the circling, the rise and fall, the smoothness of the way in which water works. Thank you, gentlemen, and please prepare for Airs. The music that was used for Airs is by Handel. He was a Baroque composer. The music itself, in a way, influenced Paul in how he wanted to use the movement. It's quite formal. It's classical in a sense. There are many elements that are kind of balletic, but with a very, very strong Taylor flavor in the back, the use of the grounded run, the use of a sense of undercurve and the way in which the body is used. One of the aspects of today's program that I wanted to have you think about was how not only the music is influenced by the dance, but how your listening to the music is changed by how the dance is actually choreographed. And I will get back to that later. So this is Airs, choreographed in 1978. Thank you. I danced with Paul Taylor myself for 12 years, and this was one of the first dances that was actually made on me, although I did not do Shanti's part. But I always felt, when the curtain went up on airs and I felt that cool air coming in from the audience and the lights, that I was in a magic place. And I stayed in that magic place to the moment that the curtain came down on airs. And it was a very blissful and wonderful feeling. Even though the dance itself was quite taxing in many, many ways, I never felt that I left that magic kingdom. But certainly not all of Mr. Taylor's work is that way at all. He's, as I said before, he's very much a reporter. He's extremely observant, not only of human behavior, but of animal behavior, insect behavior, and plants. He's a wonderful, wonderful gardener. He collects butterflies. He has pets. He spends a lot of time in the country by the shore of Long Island, and he soaks in nature, and he actually uses it in his pieces, sometimes in ways that are not necessarily recognizable, but definitely give his work a flavor. But perhaps most intriguing to him is the human animal, and not always the blissful, magical, idealized side by any means at all. And he became quite intrigued by the idea of doing social dances. He did a piece called Company B, in which he used a lot of dances from the 40s. He has used waltzing, which is certainly one way in which human beings relate to each other, is by dancing in social occasions or religious occasions, all kinds of ritual that goes along with human social dancing. He became intrigued by the tango. The tango was actually invented in 1880 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And it came really from the lowlife, people who worked and lived on the docks. And it was a way for people to meet, develop or not develop relationships. It eventually became a much, much more sophisticated form of dance. But in those days, it was an outlet for people who really didn't have much pleasure in their lives. Their lives were pretty arduous. The relationships that you will see in the next piece, called Piazzolla Caldera, which was choreographed in 1998, are by no means friendly relationships always. You can see that as the men and women begin to come onto the stage, they're already isolated from each other. As the movement progresses, you can see that the men and women are also, almost in a sense, sizing each other up the way people do when they begin to meet for the first time, but in not a terribly friendly way, a little bit of suspicion in the air. There will be a duet between two men, which is sort of a mix between camaraderie and also how easily that can flare up into a fight, particularly if men have had a little bit too much to drink. So Piazzolla Caldera is a slice of reality, in a sense, even though it's still on the stage. It's very definitely not the blissful atmosphere that you saw in Airs. As I said, the music is by Astor Piazzolla. He died in 1992, so he's a fairly contemporary composer. He was born in Argentina. Piazzolla Caldera. I'm sorry. Thank you. So that was a bit of a different story, wasn't it? But given that, you can see that there are still recognizable dance steps in all of it. It's something that we would clearly identify as dancing. No question, it's not walking, it's not running, it's dancing. Almost everything they did would have a name to it. However, back to the idea of Paul Taylor as reporter, he says that he once watched a woman running for a bus, and that inspired Esplanade. An esplanade is a kind of very formal walkway, sometimes with colonnade, sometimes with a roof over it. What he did with the piece Esplanade, that you're going to see the last section of now, was to set himself a task in which he was going to go for the simplest possible movements and peel the layers away the way you peel an onion until he got to the absolute core of the movement, and see if that would actually bring out a different kind of creativity. And it indeed did. Esplanade is one of his most famous and most revered and respected works. And there is not a dance step in it. He literally based the whole thing on pedestrian movement, exploring the very many different ways in which people can walk, run, fall, leap, everyday movements. But because of the complexity with which it's put together, both musically and in terms of movements and the counts and the floor patterns, which are very, very complicated, and the kind of endurance and articulation and specificity and timing, not to mention performance expression that it takes, only a dancer can do it, and a very, very strong, very powerful, very, very skilled dancer nonetheless. It's dressed in pretty much regular streetwear. The women wear very, very plain dresses. The men are in pants and shirts. The music is by Bach, who was also a Baroque composer, and this is the last movement of his double violin concerto. Now, some people have been shocked by the fact that Paul Taylor would put pedestrian movement to Bach, but it's the way in which he does it. It still has a kind of formality, but there's an openness to the way in which the dancers move. There's a clarity, there's a wonderful exuberant energy with which they do this dance that I really think Bach would clearly have loved. And although he wouldn't have necessarily defined it as dancing himself in those days if he were to see it, I think in these days it's very, very clear that this is dancing at its absolute best and most exuberant. They're not going to come out before the curtain, before the music starts, because there is an element of surprise to the way in which this opens. Esplanade, choreographed in 1975. Thank you. I'd been listening to Bach's music all my life, but when I saw this piece, it certainly made me hear the music in a totally different and fresh and wonderful way. I'd like to introduce the dancers to you, and then we'll open for questions and answers, also from the viewing audience as well, so be ready to call in. First is Chad Levy, Michelle Fleet, Joe Gallerizzo, Jared Wooten, Susan Dodge, and Shanti Girao. And I thought, just to get the ball rolling, you might like to hear from the dancers themselves, just a couple of sentences each about their backgrounds, where they come from.
I got to start. My name is Joe Gallerizzo. I'm from Rockville, Maryland. I went to school in Dallas, Texas. I've been dancing for 19 years.
Hi, my name is Shanti. I'm from Stockton, California. It's in Northern California. I went to Southern Methodist University, and I got my BFA in dance performance there. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Susan Dodge. I'm from Florida. I have a gymnastics background, and I went to Southern Methodist University in dance performance.
My name is Jared Wooten. I started dancing when I was 12, and I'm 23 now. I'm from Kingston, New York, and started dancing pretty early. Really enjoy it.
My name is Michelle Fleet. I started dancing when I was 4. I'm 23 now. I'm from the Bronx, New York. Jared and I both went to Purchase College, which has a dance conservatory there, and we both have our BFAs in dance.
Hi, I'm Chad. I actually started dance really late. I started at 19, and I'm 24 now. I got my training at the North Carolina School of the Arts, where I got my degree there. And originally, I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Thank you. So do we have questions from the audience? Yes.
Hi, my name is Flavia Garcia, and I was wondering, how did you know you wanted to be a dancer, and when did you know this?
I didn't know I wanted to be a dancer. It actually snuck up on me. I had a big gymnastics background, and I actually wanted to be an actor. And somehow, some way, dance kind of found me, and I fell in love with it, and basically that's how it happened. Anybody?
I would say, like most of us, dance has been a part of our lives since we were children, and we've all grown to love it so much. And from loving it, it's something that you want to do, and especially if you have the chance to make your career out of something you love to do, then it's all the more better, and that's what we've pretty much all decided to do.
I think, too, it challenges you in so many ways. It challenges you mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I know that's the main reason why I was drawn to it, is because I needed a career that gave me all those outlets. Another question?
Another question from the audience?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Berger. I was wondering, how long is a dancer's career, and have you thought about what you want to do later in life?
I think a dancer's career is an individual, depending on whether you get tired of touring or whether or not your body cuts out on you. That's the important part. But there's many people that have been dancing for, there's Lee Shaib has danced in the company for 20 years. He's not in there in the company anymore. But as far as me, after I have a dance career, I'd like to have my own dance company.
We have a call actually from New Orleans. Caller, are you ready? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Montez. I want to know what inspires you to dance. What are your inspirations?
What were inspirations?
Yes, he wants to know what your inspirations are.
I don't know. I mean, growing up, I danced a lot of ballet, so of course, like Brishnikov and people like that who were very strong male dancers. That influenced me a lot. I think that did, and then when I got older, I think it was myself. I mean, it was really internal. It's something that I wanted, and it took me many years to get there, but it was kind of superficial before that.
Should we move on to another question?
No, you may answer that one.
Oh, I can answer that. Well, my older sister was a dancer, and so ever since I was little, I can remember always admiring that and wanting that kind of, just wanting to try out that kind of self-expression, and it was a new form of self-expression for me. And a lot of, you get, like this company, the Paul Taylor Dance Company was another inspiration for me, because I love the way they dance.
That's been the inspiration for most of us, hasn't it? We
Music
have
like
another
this,
call
too.
from Powhatan.
Yes. Hi, I wanted to know, I know that one of you said you started dance at age 19. When is it too late to start dancing, and when is the peak? When do you think that you will retire?
Maybe I'll take that one. I think that, again, is very individual. It has a lot to do with your basic good health, of course, and your structure, how resilient your body is. Whether you've been an athlete as a child helps tremendously. And, of course, particularly in modern dance, this is just one aspect of modern dance that you've seen today. There are so many varieties, each with their own authenticity. And I think it depends really upon what kind of modern dance you end up doing. And you can dance into some people have danced into their 60s and 70s. Yes, another question from the audience.
Hi, I'm Heather White, and I was wondering, of the three pieces you performed today, which one is your favorite and why?
You know what? Actually, I don't have a favorite. Each piece that Paul has choreographed carries a special meaning and a special place in my heart. And so each time I do that individual piece, it's my favorite. So it's like, on a given night, I'm doing 3 of my favorite pieces, whichever one they are. So.
Yes, we have a call from Nyack, New York.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I was really, first of all, it was beautiful. Just a gorgeous presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm 45 years old, and I was a modern dancer for many years, 20 years. And I saw these dances on older dancers, some of them very famous in the modern dance world. And I wanted to ask any one of you, how did you get this maturity of expression? Because I cannot believe you are all so young. How did you get this maturity of expression that I saw Paul's generation of about 10 or 15 years ago do it? It's gorgeous. What did you do to get this just gorgeous, artistic, mature expression of the dances? You look like you looked at videotapes or something. And good luck to everyone. And now I got to turn on my TV and hear the answer.
Okay. Well, personally, actually, I guess for all of us, yes, we do study from videotapes, and we do watch the older dancers from the past years. And individually, though, I think we all have something within us that allows us to be mature enough to understand this movement and understand the meaning behind each piece. You know, each piece has a different meaning, and it's our job as dancers, you know, to go and find that meaning. You know, we all have our own ideas, but it does have to come to a point where we all understand it together, you know, as one group. So, you know, that's pretty much it. And also with directors like Susan McGuire and Sandy Stone, Ken Tosti, you know, these were former dancers in the Taylor Company, which, you know, influenced us, you know, and they also help us out, you know, telling us, well, this is what, you know, they were there when he choreographed the piece, you know, and they can tell us, well, this was his idea, you know, and so then we can go on our own, think about that, and then add our own to it.
And I think he looks for the kind of people who are going to respond to all of that as well. That's one of the things that he sees in Audition. We have another call from Canfield, Ohio. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering how long you guys have been dancing together as a group.
It actually varies because Mr. Taylor very often takes dancers from the ranks of the smaller company into the larger company. And Michelle Shanti's the newest. She's been in the company since the summer, essentially. August, and Michelle and Jared and Joe have been in the company for a year, but I think actually the longest anyone was with the company was for 6 altogether. So it varies. Okay, everyone, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. I would like to, we have one more call. Oh, right, okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
This is Sabrina Shepperson from Richmond, Virginia. And I would like to know, I'd like to start dancing myself, and how do you get involved in dancing? Do you have to take any dancing classes? And how do you get involved in dancing?
We should make this a short one because we have about 2 minutes.
The best thing to do is to look in your hometown or the towns nearest to you for dance studios, and of course, big cities always have dance. You can look in newspapers like Variety or the New York Times or Dance Magazine, and get on the internet. Look up dance companies on the internet. Yeah.
Yes, one more.
Hi, I'm Gary Brown from Lake Ridge Middle School. I want to know, are there any dancers or teachers who have influenced you in your dance career?
A lot. I mean, millions of them, it seems like. I did, this helps answer the other question, I did take a lot of summer intensives, which gave me a wide variety of different kind of techniques and styles, and that's where a lot of them, but one of my biggest inspiration is Paul Taylor himself.
Yes, exactly. I think for most of us that's true. One more call from Philadelphia.
Yes, thank you. My question really is from a parental side. What gave each one of you the independence to break away from your family and take your talents and art on the road as a parent? My daughter wanted to do the same thing, and I've kind of held on to her, and I'm afraid to let her go out on her own the way you all have shown in your expression there.
I can actually help with that one a bit. I think, first of all, it takes a great deal of independence on the part of the young student, and one hopes, as my parents did, that they actually are encouraging enough so that the young dancer feels that they can have a career in dance. I think to get parental support is crucially important. I think it's also very important that you realize how arduous the life of a touring company can be, and that you are on top of that. But as long as she's getting really, really good training, which is one of the most important things, and she feels that she has your support, there's a lot of comfort and security in being a member of a touring company. These people are a family, and I remember that I felt very much when I was dancing that these people were a family as well. And they would take very, very good care of each other, and we were very well taken care of on the road as well. And we have family life, so there's no question about having spouses and having children. In fact, Susan and Joe are married, which is the ideal situation if you're actually hooked up with someone who's on the road with you. Okay, so that, again, it varies, but she needs encouragement, and she also needs to be, of course, very, very carefully realistic about what it entails to become a dancer. We're out of time. I would like to thank the students in the auditorium for being with us. I would also like to thank the viewing audience from across the country for tuning into the program. It has been a pleasure to share with you our passion, dance. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question today about dance, you can contact the performers using the email address on the screen. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions. We'd also like to invite you to visit the Kennedy Center and the Prince William Network websites at the addresses on your screen. There you'll find information on upcoming programs, as well as other resources on integrating the arts into the curriculum. We would also like to hear what you think of the Kennedy Center Performing Arts Series. So we have provided an electronic evaluation form. It is on the Prince William Network website, and we are asking that you fill it out so that we can select topics and resources you need to enhance your classroom experience. I'd like you to remember that our next live program will be Friday, December 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, when the award-winning author Walter Dean Myers will read excerpts from his books and talk about his personal experiences and his work. And we have time for one more question.
I'm Eric Sharping, and I wanted to know, what is a typical day like for a dancer?
When we're in New York rehearsing, we have a dance class that starts at 10 o'clock, goes till about noon, and then we rehearse from 12 to 5, Monday through Friday, sometimes 6 days a week if we have to hurry up and learn something and leave on the road. When we're on tour, it's a little different. We usually we'll get to the theater about 1 o'clock, spend an hour warming up, rehearse for the show for about 3 hours, then take a small break, and then do our show from 8 till 10 usually, and then chow on dinner and and then relax. So it's a little different on tour. On tour, we're also traveling a lot between cities and towns, planes and buses, and we're all together all the time.
So it's a good thing that you get along as well as you do. And they actually do. It's a wonderful, wonderful camaraderie. Thank you so much for being with us, everyone. Oh, one more. Right. Good. This is wonderful.
How are you picked to join the company?
Well, hello? We each went through an audition process. Like Susie, she went to class one day, and she didn't know he was looking for anyone, and he asked her. but each of us auditioned, and I auditioned a few times and finally got hired.
An audition experience, there's a couple different auditions. One is called a cattle call. Usually, one audition I went to, it was 400 girls for one part. The guys are usually a little bit less because there's less guys than girls in the dance. Usually 100 men to one part. Sometimes there's selective auditions where your people recommend you to come in and be seen. And then, like Shanti